feel that I completely understand why Kyrgyz students want to go abroad. My feeling is that there's a little bit of a naivete or a false hope there. And what people should be doing a little bit more is just try to develop themselves, cultivate themselves, which they can do wherever. So, I mean, it's perfectly possible to have a great education here. And what I really hope and what I hope to be part of is educational infrastructure building up here to an international level. But yeah, I mean, there is stuff that's available in the West. I think just because the schools have been doing it for hundreds of years in some cases, and what that is this real focus on the self, on individuality, on just trying to work very hard to develop yourself. In liberal arts universities in the United States, it's a lot more self-directed. So, like at Yale University, I chose all my classes. This whole thing of moving in a block with all the same students, to me, that's just very different. And so I would choose what I wanted to take, and it wouldn't all be in the same department. So, I mean, there are pluses and weaknesses to both sides, but I do think that emphasis on individuality is, there's room for Kyrgyzstan and for developing countries, I think, to move in that direction. So, obviously, if you're an ambitious person, you want to go abroad. And there are all kinds of reasons why that would benefit you individually, because you get exposure to different cultures. Maybe you can make more money abroad. So I completely understand the reasons for brain drain. On the other hand, if everybody does it, then the society is just never going to advance. If you lose all your most ambitious, most talented people every generation, then you really get stuck. So it's a big problem. And I mean, I was recently involved with a school, starting a school, and every single student wanted to go abroad somewhere. They didn't know where they wanted to go, but they knew they wanted to not be here. And to me, that's a real problem. That's something. Yeah, to be honest, there are a lot of limitations in the education system. I think a lot of it does have to do with holdovers from the Soviet Union. I think there's a certain rigidity in a lot of the system, and there's a little bit of a sense of bureaucracies having probably more power than they should, that the bureaucracies kind of do whatever makes most sense for them. And there isn't as much of a priority as I would kind of like to see on just like really thinking through what's the best possible outcome for students. It's not just a problem here. Like if you go to universities in the West, everybody is going to have the same complaints that the schools are basically businesses and they're doing things that are right for the business. But I do think there's a lot of room to grow. And there are a few developing countries that have basically gotten to a certain level, having a growing middle class, and have just been like, we're going to invest everything in education. South Korea is most famous for this. Singapore really did this. And I think Central Asia could do this too. And just sort of say, like, the thing that's most important to us is our human capital. What we can really do is invest in education and get kind of an elite that's then going to give back and stay here. But to do that, I do think there is room for a lot of reform within the educational system. I really like the students here a lot. And if I didn't, I probably would have left a long time ago. I mean, I was planning to be here for a semester. I was working on a writing project, and I just happened to be invited to be here through a friend of a friend. And to be honest, I wasn't really thinking that much about it, and I figured I'd go back to the US after a little bit. And if the students had been obnoxious or totally lazy, I probably would have just gone back. But things happened, I met people, I kind of got comfortable here. But it was very important to me that there were enough motivated students to kind of make it worth staying. And so that's been my impression that, I mean, I talk to a lot of unhappy, disgruntled academics in America. Everybody's like, students here, they don't really want to learn, and they're using AI for everything, and everybody's kind of unhappy. And that hasn't been my experience here. I mean, I think there's really a lot to like. I think the students here are very enthusiastic. They know that education is their future. They want to, they want to just have better lives than the lives of their parents or grandparents. So for me, that's really exciting. It's really exciting to see it. And so that's the good news. The bad news is I think a lot of people just don't really have like a modern 21st century system to follow, and kind of aren't exactly sure like which paths to pursue. And that's a hard question to solve. I really encourage people to ask the tough questions, so I'm glad you're asking the tough question. So there are a few reasons. I mean, the number one reason is personal, that I met somebody in my family here, and so that's the focus of my life is my family. Then I went through a career transition, so my real passion has always been writing. A lot of what I do is writing fiction, and to some extent kind of nonfiction and journalism. So it was always a little bit of an accident that I fell into documentary filmmaking. It was easier to make a living doing that than it is certainly working as a novelist or as a print journalist. It was never really my passion. And then there's a point in my late 30s when I was like, I kind of need to make a choice. And there were some different reasons why I actually didn't really like working for Netflix. I didn't really like working for these places. I liked working better in print, even though the pay is less, but it suited my temperament better. So I kind of made a decision at some point to do that switch. And right now I work with a publication called Persuasion, which is great, which is like an online magazine. And I'm able to work from anywhere doing that. And so it just felt like, kind of, why would I be, in America paying, like huge rent and huge expenses when I can be somewhere else? And it suits I'm kind of a traveler by temperament. Mm-hmm. I like being in different countries. So that all kind of suits me. And then, I mean, increasingly as I spend time here, I'm getting kind of more invested in the project of like Kyrgyzstan's development. I mean, I really want Kyrgyzstan to be successfmy mean, I feel, I still feel like a guest in the country. Like, I mean, it's not exactly my thing, but my kids are Kyrgyz, my wife is Kyrgyz, so to me, there's kind of a feeling of some kind of an opportunity or being part of something. So as with anything, when you get to people above a certain age, there's usually no one simple answer. Like there are multiple reasons for. So the first thing is that you really have to be a self-motivated learner, and a lot of my students. Well, I like my students, I appreciate them. A lot aren't really that self-motivated. There's a certain mentality where people kind of stay with the class, and the class kind of has a little bit of an average. And Western universities tend not to work like that. You tend to just be kind of on your own. And by the way, for humanities stuff, you have to read a ton. I don't think a lot of the students here are really big readers. So that's something that people would really have to catch up on, is just read like a huge amount. Then there's a big culture clash. I think what a lot of students who go to the West don't realize is how kind of different it's going to be. And so in terms of the brain drain, I think a lot of people just go and then kind of bounce back. But just how to be ready for that culture clash, it's not easy. And basically, I think you have to develop a lot of independence, just kind of an independence of spirit to be willing to do that. It's not for everybody. And so those are two things to prepare for going to the West. The third one would probably be to have a plan. I can feel that most of the young people I talk to who want to go abroad are just like, oh, America's really cool. And then they get there and everything's more expensive and life is hard and they're starting from a real disadvantage. So I wouldn't encourage people to just go. And I think like a lot of the Kyrgyz I know in America, they actually live really hard lives. And it's kind of like they're doing the same kind of work there that they would be doing here, but without their families. And it's like, it doesn't really make that much sense to me. So for the people who go abroad, going when you're young, going for education makes sense, is a good way to do it. But I think even if you go for education, you should probably have a plan. You should probably be like, okay, whatever it is, I'm really interested in business and I want to go to a good business program and that's what I want to do. I think just kind of drifting, which I understand because I have this in my personality too, but I think just drifting is a little bit probably not the right way to do it.
Great answer.